What if your family left you in the woods to die? And that was actually the kind thing to do. Ancient humans abandoned the sick. We know this. Archaeologists have found the evidence. But here's what nobody talks about. Sometimes they didn't. And the reason why tells us something deeply weird about what it means to be human. Let's go back. Way back. We're talking 100,000 years ago. Small bands of hunter-gatherers roaming the African savanna. No hospitals, no antibiotics, no Uber Eats when you're too sick to hunt. Here's the shocking part. Life expectancy hovered around 35 years. Not because people aged fast, but because dying young was just Tuesday. These groups were tiny. We're talking 20 to 50 people. That's it. Your entire world was roughly the size of a school field trip, and every single person had a job. You hunted, you gathered, you carried things, you watched the kids. If you stopped contributing, the math got brutal fast. One sick person eating food they couldn't help gather wasn't just a personal problem. It was a group crisis. Think about your friend group. Now imagine if getting a broken leg basically meant a death sentence, not because of the break, but because you'd slow everyone down during a mammoth migration. Modern humans complain when the Wi-Fi cuts out. These people were making life or death decisions before breakfast. So yes, abandonment happened. Archaeologists have found ancient campsites where the evidence tells a grim story. Someone got left behind. But here's the detail that sounds made up. Researchers found hearths, fire pits, built right next to single individuals who couldn't move. Not group fires, solo fires, built by the group for the sick person before they walked away. They didn't just dump you in the dark, they gave you warmth, maybe some food, and left. It was mercy wrapped in practicality. The whole group surviving was more important than one person surviving. Sound brutal? It was. But also, it was a system. A terrible, logical, heartbreaking system. Now here's where it gets wild. Anthropologists have discovered skeletons of ancient humans who survived massive injuries and lived for years afterward. Years. The kind of injuries that would have made them completely dependent on others. One famous case, a Neanderthal found at Shanidar Cave in Iraq. He had a withered arm, was blind in one eye, and showed severe arthritis. He survived to old age. Old age for a Neanderthal. That doesn't happen unless people are feeding you, protecting you, carrying you sometimes. But Shanidar isn't even the wildest one. Researchers also found a young Homo heidelbergensis, an even older human species, with a severe spinal deformity. This individual couldn't have hunted, couldn't have carried anything. They would have needed help just to eat. And yet the bone structure shows they lived for years with that condition. Years of being cared for by people who got nothing practical in return. Anthropologist Alan Rogers calls this evidence that prehistoric humans had what he calls a grandmother effect. Older, less mobile individuals who couldn't hunt still contributed wisdom, childcare, and memory of where to find food in bad seasons. Being useful didn't always mean being strong. Sometimes it meant being the one who remembered. Compare that to your own life. We outsource caring for sick people to hospitals and insurance companies. These so-called primitive humans were maintaining long-term care for disabled individuals with zero infrastructure and zero guarantee of their own survival. That's not primitive. That's something else entirely. So, which is it? Did ancient humans abandon the sick or care for them? Both. And that's the most human answer imaginable. Researchers studying prehistoric care now use a term called paleocare, the study of how early humans decided who got help and who got left behind. And what they found flips everything. The decision wasn't random cruelty. It tracked with one thing, whether the sick person still had social value to the group. Knowledge, experience, status, emotional bonds. If people loved you or needed you, they carried you. If you were a stranger or a burden with no ties, the fire got built and everyone walked. And then there are the children. Archaeologists have found remains of ancient children with severe congenital conditions. Conditions they were born with. Conditions that meant they never walked, never hunted, never contributed anything by the cold logic of survival. And yet they lived for years. Someone chose them every single day. Think about what that means for a second. In a world where every calorie counted and every able body was a survival asset, people were choosing to feed and protect kids who couldn't give anything back. Not because it helped the group, not because it made strategic sense, because they loved them. That's not a survival instinct. That's something we don't even have a scientific word for yet. Here's the quotable line. Ancient humans didn't abandon the sick because they were heartless. They abandoned them because resources were the difference between everyone dying and some people surviving. But the ones they loved? They dragged them through deserts, fed them for years, and grieved when they died. Just like us. Here's the flip. We look at ancient humans and think, ruthless, savage, survival of the fittest. But the actual fossil record says something more complicated and more human than that. They were making the same impossible calculations we make today. Who gets the ventilator? How much do we spend on end-of-life care? What does a society owe its weakest members? They didn't have philosophers or politicians to wrestle with those questions. They had fire, a sick friend, and a choice. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, they chose love over logic. We've been doing this forever. The question was never, are we capable of caring? It's always been, who counts? Drop a comment. Would you have stayed or walked away? Be honest. And if this broke your brain a little, watch our video on how ancient humans performed surgery 7,000 years ago. And the patients actually survived. Links right there.